Hello and welcome to Gin with Gwynne. I'm Oliver Gwynne, and this is where I give you my off-the-cuff and unrehearsed thoughts on marketing, data, and philosophy. This week, I am joined by a guest, Janthana. I'm going to get your second name wrong. Kaenprakhamroy, maybe.
Oh, that's very well. Thank you so much.
Do you want to? Am I anywhere close with that second name? I feel like I'm
No,
not.
it sounds natural. It sounds really natural. Yes.
Didn't feel natural coming out.
Yeah.
Who are you, Janthana, and what do you do?
I'm the CEO of an Insurtech company called Tapoly, and we provide insurance services to freelancers and micro SME. And we also have technology solution that we upsell to insurance company.
Cool. And for the people watching at home, so the point of doing these interviews is we want to have sort of natural conversations with people. And so the interview you're seeing today won't be edited in any way, shape, or form unless we start sneezing uncontrollably for 10 minutes. The first thing I wanted to say to you was a theme that often comes up in my blogs is obscurification, this idea of sort of things being more complicated than they need to be and the language being changed to make things seem harder than they are. And I feel like insurance is a place where that happens a lot. You've got actuaries and product managers and underwriters and brokers and agents and MGAs and claim handlers, and you've got a whole economy of people who are taking money from people for what is basically contract law. Is it more complicated than it needs to be?
I think the language of the law have been, written in a certain way that is not common for people to understand. It's not a speaking language. That makes sense. It's a legal language, and it's always going to be a little bit more complicated, especially for those that doesn't have English as them like primary language, like myself, because English is my fourth language that I learned, and it's like really, really hard for me to understand all this legal language. And thanks to LLM, I'm able to, I usually translate everything that I don't understand into a more simple English form so that I can absorb and understand. So that's, thanks to that. I used to have like thesaurus and dictionary, like a big one, and it would take ages just to understand one single words. But now you can, like translate a book, a contents, a policy wording, and then be able to just kind of, like work out the policy gap in a few seconds, which is like fantastic.
That's true. I hadn't thought about that. Do you think that's going to be really helpful for people getting insurance, that now they're not like, and what exactly does this mean? And they can just put it through ChatGPT?
They should always do. They should always do, because insurance policy is just one of those things that you can never find like a standardized insurance policy across the industry. Everyone have their own way of rewording, excluding certain risks that they don't want. I mean, like this is like the standard is that policy is no standard. If that makes sense. And it's good for us to basically have a tools to be able to work out, okay, based on this review of the policy, is this what I need? So it's good for you to equip yourself with additional tools.
Cool, interesting. And do you need that amount of people in the insurance game? You running quite a lean startup, do you need all of these people and all of this infrastructure to do insurance, or is it something that can be disrupted and lean startups are going to be the future now?
I think right now insurance, I mean, like if you're talking about right now, it may be just okay, but we always going to need more insurance people, especially for customer facing side, because a lot of insurance, let's face it, although we can do things online, but we much prefer to have human touch point. But that would depend on where. Like for example, claim. I much prefer to talk to a human than machine, right? Unless it's automated. And I think we hope that over time we would get that more claim automations where, like flight cancellations could be claim automations, any kind of weather-related catastrophe, like flood risk, for example, it could be automated now. So there are other incidents that could be automated. And that would be good for consumer if you don't have to raise claim, and you get payment straight away. Now there are some risks, for example, that require human interactions. Like, for example, if somebody sue you as a matter of, as a course of business, then you want to talk to somebody for help and support. Or for emergency, like for health emergency, for example, you want somebody to be there for you. And for that reason, I think we still need a lot of human interactions. And I think in future, we probably will see more human, where for certain type of incident, no, not certain type of incident, it's just more like certain job would require human, like, for example, complicated or complex decision makings, you will still need human, right? Empathy, like any type of job that require empathy, humanity, you need human. So we will still need those. But I think job in future would be more fun. What I mean by more fun is that anything that, kind of robotic, automatic, or it could be done automatic, the LLM or other AI should be able to support us with that. And it's much easier. And I think it would level playing field a lot of people who doesn't have maybe English or maybe doesn't have, like the educations from the beginning, because the LLM would be able to automate a lot of it. So the work could be just simply reviewed. It could just be, like kind of quick check, as opposed to having to knowing. It's just like calculation, these days, rather than doing calculation yourself, you can ask the LLM to calculate pretty much anything for you. A prediction, for example, the LLM can do it very well now. So therefore, like there's nothing that you cannot command. So your skill set in future will be different from what it is now. Yes. So it's like, like if you're talking about 40, 50 years ago, engineer, you actually need to know how to use calculator, right? Or you need to know how to calculate manually. But today it's like you just need to know how to command the LLM. Like what's the prompt engineer? So it's all about prompt engineer now. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, because I know they're saying that the insurance space is ripe for AI and automation, as is everything. But when you really stop and think about it, the three fundamental questions are: how much is something worth? How risky is something? And is a claim fraudulent? And that's quite a manual set of questions, really, when you stop and think about it on a case by case by case basis. And no amount of AI or data points can get you to that 100% probably. So is insurance really about sort of systems of identification, and how do you, as a CEO, build those for a small startup?
I think it depends on what line of business. If we're talking about properties, home insurance type, or even like kind of other gadgets, car insurance, yes, verification, identifications, the ability, general data to be able to price risk, like repairment costs is important for those line of business. For other line of business, like a general commercial liability, like professional indemnity, public liability, even employer liability or cyber, is harder because you never really, for each risk, like the extent of the liability could be completely different. Like cyber is like, it could be unquantified. We don't know, like it's like that cyber attack happen at a wider country level scale. What would be the impact of it? Imagine, like all the hospitals that have equipment to save life right now. Imagine like transportation, flight. What would happen to those if we don't have the the data, electricity, or anything to come on and sustain the machine? So yeah, it's very frightening to kind of think about it. But yes, nevertheless, I mean, like I think insurance will change the way we not the way we price risk will change. The reason for that is we will have much better data. We will have much better technology to be able to price risk more precise. The policy that we that offer could eventually be personalized, could, depending on what type of product, especially like, gadget, for example. It's easy to personalize it. Even trip, like insurance by trip, for travel insurance, that's also could be personalized. And it's already, like any kind of on-demand fragmented insurance that precisely cover certain type of risk could be personalized.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
You have a background working for big investment banks, and then you've started your own company. I'm kind of interested in the transition. Was there anything from those big companies, which are not known for being sort of agile and quick and startup mentality, was it difficult for you to sort of change your headspace from that to a startup where things are leaner? You've got to do a lot of stuff yourself. How did you struggle in that transition?
Yes, I think the transition wasn't that difficult to start. Not like in terms of the skill set. And I knew more or less what it would take for me to set up a regulated company. Obviously, at that point, I know nothing about insurance. And I was a little bit naive in terms of, what I think I could achieve. But nevertheless, I managed to achieve pretty much every milestone that I set myself. So I'm very good at goal settings. I'm very good in upskilling, and I'm very good in solving problems. Because this is not the first time I did it. I mean, I've been solving my own problems since I was 8 years old. Being, like a girl who barely have any support from her family, and be able to like not only support herself, but also being responsible for someone else, like a young brother at the time who are under my care. And I was 8 years old when I was left to fend for myself. And at the time, I have to go to school, or I wanted to go to school. So, finding money when your parents are not around at the age of 8, and nobody was supporting me to go to school at that age. So that was like hard. You can imagine. And then the rest of it's like, like everything that I got today were as a result of my own hard work. I don't have family support like most children. So yeah, everything has been really, really hard. But I know that I can achieve, because when you've gone through that life adversity and you have faced numerous challenges that are far more harder than what it is I'm doing now, and you know that you have paused them, and you climb up, you don't really doubt your ability to be able to do that. And that's, I'm very comfortable to say that if I cannot make it, pretty much, the majority of the world population would also fail. So I know I'm comfortable with my own ability and my own skills, because I'm survivor. And I know what it takes to learn in skill. I know what it takes to make changes, because changes is like extremely hard. A lot of us have this barrier for change, because in their head, they don't need to change. They're already good. And some of them, the glass is already full. So they can't fill up with more knowledge, because they think there's nothing that they can do extra to make them better. And that's more like a self-awareness, like when when you don't want to change, when your head going to be giving you a lot of reason why changes is not needed. It's like self-denying for anything. And in that case, you will never learn, because you would always give yourself a reason why additional information is not needed. No changes is required. Yeah.
I feel like it's a surprisingly common story with a lot of entrepreneurs, that either you become an entrepreneur because you can't fail because you're already very comfortable and you've got a nice benchmark, and so you can't fail because you've got the luxury of time, or you come from a background where you have no luxury, and so you can't fail because if you fail, you wouldn't exist, basically. Do you think that that has shaped your risk tolerance personally, and what is the difference between Janthana's risk risk
Mm.
versus sort of the insurance business where you're sort of risk averse? Are you more of a risk taker in what you're doing professionally versus the business?
I think me personally, I like to take calculated risk,
Mm,
and 75% of the risk that I take are always win. So even in investment, because I make so much effort to find out, like unless I absolutely certain that like I have high probability of winning an investment or something, or win the case, I won't start.
mm.
And to get there, I would do my research, I would ask experts, I would do whatever it takes to get me that reassurance. And that's basically how I operate. Now, from the insurance standpoint, we obviously then, like we then dictate the risk. The price is given to us by underwriters. We've got underwriting guideline again from the underwriters and insurers. So to some extent, although we are Insurtech, but when it's come to the a create product and pricing, we still have to um, combine and obey the traditional pricing guideline. So in from that perspective, we are not more traditional or more risk taker than anybody else in the industry. But me personally, I'm much more as an entrepreneur, like we are very dynamic. So we do take certain type of risk, but within the regulatory framework, within FCA's require. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I've heard before is that people who come from, I don't want to say poverty necessarily, but from a background where money is tight and it's a struggle on a day-to-day basis and basic needs aren't met, is that in the back of their mind, they're always worried a little bit that they will go back to that. And so they're actually more risk averse and they don't take risks because there's a little bit of them that thinks, but I don't want to get to that situation. Has that ever thought occurred?
I think, like, certainly that I would call it poverty mindset.
Mm,
People who come from poverty, yeah, you're right. I mean, like, even myself, I can relate to that you feel afraid that you will fall back to that. And and there's two reaction, I think. One is that somebody who would save all the time. Everything is like scarcity. So everywhere that you go, you're just like, okay, I need to save, I need to keep, but I'm the opposite because I realize one thing that is true. One thing that I prove myself is that I have the ability, and the skill set to be able to sustain the wealth I have.
mm.
So basically, I'm good enough to find work. That's what it means in simple terms. And therefore, I'm not afraid. And like anything, in order for you to gain, you need to invest. And I'm not talking about just like pure investment, financial investment. I'm talking about people investment. Because when you get to a certain level, all of your wealth would come through people relationship.
Mm.
At leadership level, imagine, like what I do day to day involve people, my team that I need to run, my co-founder, investors, customers, partners. It's all people-based skill. So when you start off your career, it may be more like technical skills. So you need to up your technical skill to a certain level that you can sustain your job.
Mhm.
And then, after that, when you climb up the ladder, it's more important that you have the people skill to be able to a networking, to be able to get the resources or get the partnership that you need. So there's a lot more people skill than technical skills,
Yeah.
depending on where you are in your career. And that's the part that, I have to upskill, because when I was young, I only focused on my technical skill because I thought that is what needed in order for me to get a job, which is correct. But then as you get older, there's other skill set that I may not be as prepared, that I need to upskill. And that's what I meant by, like even today, I learn every day, but the skill set that I learned today is different from the skill set that I learned in my younger year.
Interesting. A lot of people who come from large companies and then they start their own, they have a tendency to sort of try and emulate what they've learned or the environment that they've been on, and it doesn't apply necessarily to a smaller company. Did you have any challenges around that sort of mentality of having still having JP Morgan or a big bank in your head whilst you were building quite a small company? And was it a problem?
Maybe initially. I think in terms of costing, in terms of, like how I think, like my remunerations, the value of my company. So when you come from like a big company, everything is big, right? Like you start up your startup, okay, I need to have certain valuation because that's what I see everybody else pricing. So everything that you have is not a reflection of the reality, because you only see like big, like how much people are getting paid in big corporates. So you price on that. So you pay people more. When I first started, I pay people more, like because I thought, okay, that's, like I've seen people getting this level of pay, not knowing that investment banking are, like in industry where people get better pay. The time you're like, hang on a minute, other startup are paying like, like 20-30% less than what I pay my staff, right? And you always, and then you have to kind of, like get back in line with the market, which means that, like we have to save more money, because at that point we are not being cost efficient because we pay people more, and then the valuation of our company, we price it up because that's what we have seen in certain industry. And then we realize, hang on a minute, like normal, the traditional multiply for insurance is lower, so we have to adjust our expectation. So that's a bit of that. Yes.
Interesting. Oh, there was a bit of feedback there. I'm just gonna hello. Okay, I might cut that one bit out. I don't know what happened there. And just to wrap up the interview, this has been really interesting. So, what advice would you have for somebody today who is maybe struggling, but they're thinking about entrepreneurship? They don't have access to either education or they don't have access to funds to start a business. Somebody who's sort of starting with nothing, what would you say to them?
Start. You don't need money to start a business. You just have to come up with a way to sell the product that you don't need to buy. So I think, people make excuse that, okay, I need to have XYZ in order for me to even start. And then, nope, you don't. You don't need to buy product these days. If you wanted to, you can go, you can do some market research, and you can find out anything that you ideally, it has to come from your need and your inspirations of doing something. So for example, me, if I find a product like, for example, Amazon product, many people don't actually produce the product themselves. They go to China, they go to certain countries where, they contact the manufacturer for the purpose of selling, and then they only do the front end, which is like the actual sales. That's what Amazon allow a lot of these manufacturing companies, or like company that wholesales products on their platform, right? And then the product itself could come from anywhere. And there are many companies around the world that need like a selling machine. So you just set up something like that. It's just that I think in future, a lot of the skill set would be around more like tech, people who know how to use platforms. It's going to be much focus on that. People who know how to build relationship, and I mean online as well. So building ecosystem is important, because when you have ecosystem, you have the engine to be able to sell pretty much anything. So, and many social media forum, you can get paid, like, for example, like TikToks, Instagram, you get paid for generate content, YouTube, right? That sort of thing. So think about things that you can do, passive income, or even, like direct, that doesn't involve you having a lot of cash. You can do it, but you need to do more research. Yes.
Great stuff. I saw that there's a company in America where for $15 you can insure yourself against being abducted from aliens.
Wow, you see, there we go. There's certain, whether aliens exist, that is another question.
That they're gambling that it's not going to happen.
Oh yes, I mean, like that is like, I'm not going to say free money, but considering that we have never officially identified whether aliens exist, then that product is pretty much claim proof.
Yeah. Still some niches left in the insurance space, I guess.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much for your time today, Janthana. It's been really interesting talking to you, and I'm sure your story is very inspirational to a lot of people out there who maybe had nothing, maybe they've got a great career, but they're still thinking about what's next, what's the next important thing, what's the next exciting thing. So thanks very much for your time and
Pleasure, Oliver.
coming.